Excellent. Thank you. Well, I'm excited to be here, and I'm going to start off with a statistic. Did you know that there's over 100,000 networking events a month in the United States? And that's a lot of, hold on here. That's a lot of people networking. And here's the end result for many of those people. And if you don't recognize this, I'm going to say congratulations. If you do recognize it, it's what I call business card buildup. I've declared this an epidemic in the business world. So I'm going to be very direct with you today, because if I try to sugarcoat or sweet talk you through this really important topic, I will be doing you a complete disservice. So if I say anything that stings, just know that I'm saying it because I care. Okay. So if you have this situation on your desk, I want you to stop it. Stop going to events, connecting with people, and then doing nothing. Because when you do that, you're wasting your time, energy, and money. And that's what it takes to get a person's business card. Now, we've been dealing with COVID, so over the last couple of years, it hasn't been a lot in person, but things are starting to come back around. And I don't want you carrying this bad habit with you. And I believe Zoom is here to stay. I don't think it's going to totally go away. So as you're networking on Zoom, it's the same idea. Don't just show up to Zoom events and then do nothing with anybody that was there, because the end result is going to be a big nothing. And I don't want that for you. So if you have this situation on your desk, I want better for you. So I'm going to get into the what, the how, and the why of follow-up. But before I do that, I want to go into my background a little bit so you understand why I'm even talking to you about this topic. So I'm Wanda Allen, and my company is Follow-Up Sales Strategies. And I'm an international speaker, a coach, and a corporate trainer. I'm also an author. I've written 2 books. My first book was Follow-Up Savvy, and my second book is Follow-Up Sales Strategies. And before I did all of that, I had a very successful 25-year corporate career. I was a business banker, and I started at the age of 19 as a secretary. And if any of you have been around long enough to remember that title, you know I'm dating myself, because today they're called administrative assistants. But I was a 19-year-old secretary, and I worked my way up the corporate ladder. And at the age of 30, I was promoted to senior vice president. And I spent the lion's share of my career managing SBA departments. And I managed departments that did 100 million plus in annual loan volume. And it was through that experience that I developed a very strong skill for creating systems. And after managing SBA for about 15 years, I was asked if I would consider the position of branch manager. And I was ready for a change, so I accepted the position, which put me into sales. And one of the first things I did was I really studied the sales process. And I realized how critical follow-up is to every single stage in the process. And I also realized there's an extension of following up called staying in touch, also known as relationship management, which is an area that's terribly neglected today. Because what so many people do is they follow up on the prospecting side, get the business, close it, drop the relationship, and they're off looking for their next new lead, prospect, and client, forgetting about everybody they've already done business with. So I want to remind you that there's more opportunity, either through more business or referrals, with the people who have already worked with you. So I really understood it all. And what I decided to do was take my strong skill of creating systems, and I developed systems for following up on the prospecting side and then staying in touch once business had been closed. And within 9 months of having these systems in place, I brought in my first $1 million account. And I've had many, many successes since then. So I know most of you would love to have the right systems in place. And there may be somebody here that would love to have a system because there's just none in existence. So if I asked each of you if you were good at follow-up, I know most of you are going to tell me no, because it's just an area that in general people really struggle with. And if you're not good at getting your follow-up work done, there's some common results. First result is you lose business. Bottom line, end of story. If you don't follow up, you are going to lose business. Research tells us that only 2% of sales are made on the first contact. That means 98% of the time you have to follow up. Secondly, you have a thin or inconsistent pipeline, and this is very stressful because if your pipeline is thin or inconsistent, your sales are going to be thin or inconsistent, and therein lies the stress. So if you will just commit to your follow-up responsibilities, it will help level out your pipeline so you're not going to have big highs and lows. Next result is you quit or give up too soon when you're following up. And if you quit or give up too soon when you're following up, in no way are you giving your pipeline an opportunity to grow. Next, you carry around negative emotions on a regular basis about your follow-up work. You have business card buildup that I just discussed, and you lack strong relationships. These are all common results of not getting your follow-up work done. So whether you recognize yourself in one of these, a few of these, or all of these, again, I want better for you. So what I'm going to do today is I'm going to give you 3 strategies that if you're willing to implement them, I promise you, they will improve your follow-up efforts immediately. And these strategies are actually the fundamentals of follow-up. The problem with life today is it's gotten so complex and complicated that the fundamentals are lost. So I always use sports team as an example. Anytime there's a team and they've lost 3 or more games in a row, you will always hear that coach say, we have to get back to the fundamentals. And a coach always says that because you can't be good at anything if the fundamentals aren't there. So life is moving full steam ahead, and that's awesome. But today we're going to go in the opposite direction and get back to the fundamentals of follow-up. And then if you want further support and training on your follow-up, I'll be beyond this presentation, I'll be offering a free gift at the end that where you can do that. Okay, so let's get into it. We have to deal with the elephant in the room, and that is stress. People are so stressed out today. And if you feel like follow-up work adds to your stress level, or follow-up work in and of itself is stressful, I have really good news for you, because follow-up is not stressful. What creates the stress is not doing your follow-up work. That's where the rub is. Because when you're not getting your follow-up work done, there's negativity attached to that. And that negativity is centered in emotions. First emotion is embarrassment. Have you ever been embarrassed because you didn't follow up? And I believe embarrassment is one of the strongest emotions we have, because we all have a sense of pride in us. And if something's too embarrassing, our pride's going to kick in and say, no way, not going there. And you're going to walk away from potential business. Next emotion is guilt. There's a lot of guilt, in particular with relationship management, because when you're not staying in touch with the people that are important to you, in essence, you're neglecting that relationship. And there's a lot of guilt there. But there's also guilt with not following up as well. And then the last emotion is discouragement. You know, you're just frustrated. Your business is slipping through the cracks. Deals are falling through. Your pipeline is thin. And it's frustrating. So if you're walking around on a regular basis, embarrassed and guilty and discouraged, this is how you're going to feel before long. And I call this trying to get through the day with a boulder on your shoulder. And I don't want that for you, because it's exhausting. It wears you out, and it's going to zap your joy. So that's the negative side. Okay, now we're going to flip it over to the positive. What emotions do you experience when you do get your follow-up work done? First is composure. You're far more composed, which means you're not running around with your hair on fire on a regular basis. And if that's your MO, that is not good for you, and it's not good for the people around you. Next emotion is you're encouraged. You feel great about the business you're closing, the prospects you're working with. Your pipeline's robust. You have a spring in your step. You actually enjoying what you do. And then the last emotion is confidence, which we forget about, because it's so critical in the sales business, because at the end of the day, that's what people buy. So when you're composed and encouraged and confident, This is how you're going to feel. And you may say, well, that's a little dramatic and a bit sappy, Wanda, but I challenge you, get your follow-up work done every working day and tell me if by and large you don't feel like this versus a person trying to drag around a big old boulder. But before we can get here, which is what I call the happy place, we've got to deal with this right here. What goes on in between the ears? And it's strategy number one, fundamental number one as well. If your mindset isn't right about your follow-up work, you will trip yourself up before you get out the door or make that first phone call, email, or text. So we've got to get it right. Now, we all have an inner child in us. And when we were kids and we said, I don't want to do that, we had adults in our lives that said, I don't care whether you want to do it, you're going to do it anyway. Well, when you become an adult and this child shows up and says, I don't want to do my follow-up work today, you don't have to. And by the way, follow-up work is very easy not to do, but it's detrimental to future business. So when your child shows up and says, I don't want to do my follow-up work today, here's the mindset shift I want you to make. I must follow up. I want you to make it a non-negotiable, because there's two reasons you follow up. One is to increase your sales and the other one's to take care of your relationships. That's it. It's not complicated. And I'm all about simplicity. So to say on any given day, I don't want to follow up today, you're going to say, what you're saying is, I don't want to work on increasing my sales or taking care of my relationships. And that just doesn't make any sense. That's why you get up every day. So please don't let your inner child be your decision maker, because it will not bode well for future business. So that's one side of us. The other side is the ego. And we all have an ego. Now I'm going to stereotype here, so don't throw stones at me. But when you think of an egotistical person, you typically think of a man. But I'm here to tell you, ladies, we all have an ego, and it is very, very sneaky, which you're going to learn. Now, the ego is not your best self. And so it's not going to serve you well if you're operating from it. And we all know the common traits of an ego: arrogant, know-it-all, chest is always puffed out, it's never wrong. That's common knowledge. But I'm going to give you a twist on the ego. Anytime you are afraid, you can be sure the ego is having its way. So what this is saying is the ego is actually a chicken, but it makes up for that chickenness. And I don't know if that's a word, but it's my word. It makes up for that chickenness by being so arrogant and know-it-all and chest always puffed out and so on. Now, I bring this up because I want you to focus on the highlighted word, afraid. There are so many fears associated with following up, which is a huge reason why people don't do it. So I'm going to get into some of the common fears with you. First fear is fear of being uncomfortable. If you're not used to getting your follow-up work done, it is uncomfortable, but in the beginning only. I want you to view follow-up as a muscle. The more you do it, the stronger it gets, the more developed it gets, and the thicker your skin will get. And as this diagram illustrates, the magic happens outside of the comfort zone. Please don't think you can get to new levels in sales, new levels in business, and remain comfortable. That's a modified definition of insanity. Keep doing the same thing, but expecting different results. So when you have to follow up, you have one of two choices. You bust through the discomfort and you take the follow-up action anyway, or you shrink back into your comfort zone and stay right where you are because you're tapped there. We all are. So when this fear shows up, the mindset shift I want you to make is, when I'm uncomfortable, it's my opportunity to grow. And you always want to be in growth mode. Okay. Next fear, fear of not knowing the outcome. I hear this a lot. Well, I hate to follow up because I never know what they're going to say. Well, this is ego-based thinking. The ego is a know-it-all. And so if it doesn't know, it doesn't want to do. And it doesn't want to do because it's a chicken. So when this fear shows up, the mindset shift I want you to make is, if I don't follow up, I will never know the outcome. Next fear, fear of being pushy. This is one of the two biggest fears. And this fear makes me crazy because there's such a negative connotation about following up. And what feeds this fear is that so many people have that pushy salesperson in their mind that they don't want to be. And so what they end up doing is going so far to the opposite end of the spectrum to make sure they're not that pushy salesperson. So they end up taking next to no action. And if your job is to bring in sales, then your job is to follow up. And if you're not doing your job, you're not being professional. Therefore, not following up is being unprofessional. So thesaurus tells us that the synonym to follow up is pursuing and showing interest. That is what you're doing. The antonym, according to thesaurus, is avoiding and forgetting. So do you want to be that professional salesperson who pursues and shows interest in the prospect, or the one who runs the risk of being perceived by the prospect as somebody who is avoiding and forgetting? And the answer is obvious. So I'm going to give you an example that will really support this point. My husband and I have decided that we want to downsize. So we want to sell our home and buy a smaller one. I've talked to 2 realtors. I told them both what we want to do. And right after I talk to them, I get a huge project at work, and I'm so busy, I can't even think about selling the house. I get through that project and we leave for a 2-week vacation. Come back from vacation and a pipe has burst in the house. And now I'm so busy with dealing with contractors and the insurance company. And have you ever had a prospect like this where it's just one thing after the other after the other? And I'm sure we all have. But I've talked to 2 realtors. One has followed up with me twice and I never heard from again. The other one is consistently following up with me throughout all my issues. Who is leaving a better professional impression? Who is going to get my business? And the answer is obvious. So you are not being pushy, you're doing your job. When this fear shows up, the mindset shift I want you to make is, I am a professional salesperson who respectfully shows my prospects that I'm interested. If you will make professional and respectful your mantra, there's no way you're going to be pushy because they don't fit together. Next fear, fear of appearing desperate. Now, this is a 2-pronged fear. The first fear is when you really need that piece of business to close because you need to cover your mortgage. You have to, you need to pay the mortgage, cover your overhead, pay for the kids' school. And when you're in dire need of that piece of business to close, it can create a sense of desperation. And I believe anybody that's been in sales long enough has experienced these times. But if you're ever in a moment where you really do need that piece of business to close, I suggest that you fall back on what I call professionalism 101, and you leave your problems at the door and be confident that in no way are you going to project what's going on within you onto the prospect. So that's the first prong. The second prong is just the old, well, if I keep following up, they're going to think I'm desperate for business. Well, anytime you think you know what somebody's thinking, you're operating from your ego. You have no idea what anybody's thinking. Even those closest to you, you may think you know, but you don't. So don't ever assume that you know what somebody's thinking. So when this fear shows up, regardless of the prong, the mindset shift I want you to make is, my job is to bring in sales. Therefore, I am willing to respectfully follow up as many times as necessary. And the last fear I'm going to discuss is that 2-letter word that so many people don't want to hear. I said being pushy is one of the top 2 fears. This is the other one, because I just hear it all the time. I hate to follow up because I'm afraid they might tell me no. Well, no is part of the sales process. Nobody can be in sales and never be told no. No one is that good, talented, or unique. In fact, there's been research done that shows the most successful salespeople get the most no's. Why? Because they make more calls than most people. And there's a real misconception out there in that so many people think the pain is in the no. That is not where the pain is. The pain is in the ignore. I will take a no over an ignore any day of the week, because when somebody tells me no, I know where they stand. It's an update. It keeps my train moving, my money train moving. But when somebody ignores me, I got to sit and idle with them. And I'm following up while I'm in idle, but I'm not moving with them or without them. And so when you're following up, no is the second best answer that you can get. And what's been my observation that the people who have a harder time hearing no have a hard time saying no. So if you have a hard time saying no, I'm going to challenge you to say no to something every single day. Because when you're in sales, it's crucial that you're very comfortable with the word no, whether you're the one saying it or hearing it. So when this fear shows up, the mindset shift I want you to make is no is good. It is not a bad word. So if you're ever in a moment where you're tempted to let your inner child make the decision not to do the follow-up work for the day, I want you to do this mind assessment. Is my decision not to follow up the result of fear-based thinking? And there's a very, very good chance it is. And there is also a very good chance that it's one of those fears I just discussed. But you might call it something else. Well, there's something more important that needs to get done. I don't have the time right now. And those are all typically just excuses. And an excuse is a cover story for the real truth. And the real truth is you're probably just stuck in a fear. And then the last thing I want to say about mindset is, please don't rely on the prospect to get back to you. Because you hear that a prospect will say, okay, we'll let you know when we're ready. Don't ever rely on that. Prospects are well-intended, but do they do what they say? Most times not. When you rely on the prospect, you're relying on the growth of your sales for somebody else to come through for you. And you just don't want to do that. So you want to make sure you always have the ball in your court. And how you keep it in your court is by asking the right questions. That's how you're in control of the next step. And that's the position that you want to be in. So that's strategy fundamental number one. Got to take care of mindset. Strategy and fundamental number two is you must use a CRM. Stands for Customer Relationship Manager. And if you don't know what it is, in a nutshell, it's a computer program where you keep all your contact and follow-up information for the people that are important to you. And if you're not using a CRM, the follow-up and relationship management responsibilities that you need to tend to are just going to be so much more difficult to manage. You'd be doing what I call slipping and sliding. And if you're not using a CRM, you are using some kind of system. And so I'm going to share with you what some of the common systems are that replace a CRM. First one is a spiral notebook on your desk. Now, how much time do you waste flipping through pages of paper trying to find information you wrote 3 weeks ago? And the bigger danger here is if you ever lost this notebook, there goes your future sales. It's just too dangerous. Next system is sticky notes. Please don't use stickies. They're little pieces of paper and they get lost in the paper shuffle. You could lose an important sticky that would lead you to the biggest piece of business you ever closed. Next, calendar. This is a fancy spiral notebook. It just has boxes on it. If you're keeping all your follow-up information here, it's going to get very, very messy. And our brains inherently shut down to messes. Cell phones were not designed to be a CRM, and so many people are trying to make their cell phones their CRM. And you may get by for a while, but at some point it's going to become too much and it's going to get into overload. And again, your brain will inherently shut down to it. The only time a cell phone is okay is if you're on the app for your CRM or you're actually on the website for your CRM. So forget about the cell phone. Next system is email. And email is a real problem in that, I talk to people all the time. They have 100+ emails in their inbox. That is so overwhelming. And I believe what really adds to the overload in the inbox is that when a CRM is not in play, people are using their inbox as their reminder and to-do list. So an example, I get an email from Bob and he tells me that he's interested in my services and he wants me to follow up in 2 weeks. So the tendency is, okay, well, I better keep that email in my inbox so I don't forget. Well, how buried does Bob's email get in 2 weeks? And am I even going to remember to go down, scroll all the way down in my inbox to try to find that email? So it doesn't work. And even if you're really organized in your folders, it doesn't matter because you still have to go and find the email. And have you ever thought you can get to an email real quick and you end up sifting through chains and chains of email trying to find the information you're looking for? I mean, it's a waste of time. And I believe that, people live in such a frenzy today and are so stressed out. And there's a lot that can be done to eliminate that stress. And one big way is through efficiencies. So these systems that I'm sharing with you that replace the CRM open the door wide for inefficiencies. And I'm going to talk about that a little more in a minute. Next system, Excel. A lot of people still use Excel, and it's definitely better than sticky notes and spiral notebook, but it's still not good because it's so labor intensive. I mean, you're scrolling up and down and left and right and moving columns and rows, and gives me a headache just thinking about it. So too late, and the bigger your sheet is, the more laborious it is. Again, it's just not efficient. And the bigger problem with Excel is it's not automated. And if it's not automated, there's just way too much room for error and oversight. And we live in an incredible time of technology. Automation makes our life so much easier and so much more efficient. And then there's one system that's worse than all of these that I just discussed, and it is your memory. And I can't tell you how many people use this system. You want to put a boulder on your shoulder? Use your memory as a CRM. Our brains were not designed to be a CRM. So if you think, oh, I'll remember to call Sue 2 weeks from tomorrow, I'm going to say, yeah, no, probably not. And it has nothing to do with age. There's just too much going on. And this is the system that will wake you up at 3 a.m. Oh my gosh, I can't believe I forgot to do that. Or it will remind you 2 weeks later that you were supposed to do something 2 weeks ago, and now you're embarrassed and guilty and discouraged, and all of those emotions come flooding back. So if you get nothing else out of me today, please get a CRM and use it, because I'm telling you, it will change your life. And that sounds so dramatic, but I say it with 100% certainty, because when you're using a CRM, your sales are going to increase. You're going to have stronger relationships. Things will stop slipping through the cracks, and your stress level is going to lower. And when all of that happens, it changes your life. Okay, so that's strategy fundamental number 2, is you must use a CRM. Strategy number 3, fundamental number 3, is you must make follow-up a top priority. Now, this may sound like common sense, but I'm going to tell you, it is not common at all. The number one reason why people tell me they can't get their follow-up work done is because they don't have the time. They're just too busy. I've heard it a gazillion times, and I never, ever believe it. It is not about the time. And time is a real problem for a lot of people in that they consistently have a shortage of it. And if you are consistently short on time, you enter what I call the blame game, where you blame time for everything. I'm too busy. I'm in a hurry. I got to go. I'll do it later. And this can become very habitual, so much so that you will find yourself saying you don't have time to do something that would take 5 minutes. And it's my observation that the people who consistently have a shortage of time are the ones who waste the most. And how they waste their time is on low priority, busy, comfortable work. And they're not getting that top priority work done first. The top priority work tends to be the uncomfortable work, but it's the work that will move the needle forward in your sales and in your business. And sadly, many people are just far more committed to being comfortable. And then that's where the whole issue comes in with time. And there's this crazy thing that happens. I call it a phenomenon because I can't explain it to you. I can't explain how it happens or why it happens, but it happens. If you will get your top priority work done first before you do anything else, you will be amazed at how time shows up for you. It's unbelievable. And time will become your friend and it will no longer be your enemy. So if you find yourself that you are in the blame game, I'm going to pull you out of it right now. I don't want you to say ever again, I didn't get that done because I didn't have the time. What I want you to say instead is, I didn't get that done because I didn't make it a high enough priority. Therein lies the truth. When you blame time, it's like it's out there somewhere. You can't quite grasp it. But when you say, I didn't make it a high enough priority, you have control over your priorities. And when you need to course correct, it is so much easier to do when you have control. So that's kind of a mindset issue as well, too. So please take on that challenge. And I also want you to understand, in no way am I suggesting that you're not busy. I don't know any working person who's not busy. First of all, you have a business or you have a job. Maybe you have both. And then you throw in spouse, kids, grandkids, aging parents. You do volunteer work. You sit on boards. You coach the kids' sports team. You're a Girl Scout mom. I mean, the list just goes on and on and on. And what I will say is, the busier your life is, the more critical it is that you prioritize effectively, because it's your priorities and getting them done which is what's going to keep you sane through it all. Okay, so that's strategy fundamental number 3. You've got to make it a top priority. So now I want to get into some sales statistics with you. There's been research done that older research told us that 48% of people never follow up. And I was never on board with this because I always believed it was so much worse. Newer research is telling us that 79% of people never follow up. That I'm on board with. That's how bad it is out there. So if you will commit and get your arms around your follow-up and relationship management responsibilities, there's so much more opportunity for you because people don't do it. And when I say people, I'm talking about your competitors. This research also tells us that 80% of sales are made between the 5th and 12th contact. And I believe this to be a spot-on statistic. I wish I could say it were different, it were better, but it's not. This is just where we are. However, only 10% of people follow up 3 or more times. Now, I believe this is true. Now, I'm going to reword this bottom statistic because I really want to drive it home for you. 90% of people follow up twice and then quit. So what that looks like, you get a lead, you follow up twice, the prospect doesn't respond, you drop it. You get another lead, you follow up twice, the prospect doesn't respond, you drop it. On and on and on. And before you know it, you're a hamster on a wheel, running, but not getting very far. And it pains me because people are working so hard on what I call the front end work, which is lead generation, networking, prospecting, cold calling, door knocking. They spend so much energy getting that lead, but they fall so short on what I call the back end work, which is the follow up, that they will never experience near the fruit of all that labor they're putting out on the front end. And a big waste of time is networking. People spend so much time and energy networking, and that is not what brings in business. It's an important part of getting business, but it only plants the seed. What brings in the business is follow-up work. So be really, really clear about that. So I'm going to tell you about this guy that cut trees. This man chopped trees morning, noon, and night, 7 days a week, huffing, puffing, sweating, bloodied hand, blistered hands, worked his fingers to the bone. But nobody could convince him to just sharpen his axe. Because if he sharpened his axe, he wouldn't have to work as hard and he'd be able to chop a whole lot more trees. And do you know why nobody could convince him? Because he said he didn't have time to stop and sharpen his axe because he was too busy chopping trees. So if you feel like you don't have time to follow up because you're too busy trying to build your business and bring in sales, it's no different than the tree cutter. So I'm going to ask you, are you using a dull axe? If you feel like you're on the hamster wheel and your axe is dull, there's only one way out of it, and it is through systems. Now, systems is a kind of a cold clinical word. And for our creatives and free spirits, this word will all but give you a hive. So if you don't like the word, then use the word daily routine. They both mean the same thing. So if I were to ask each of you, hey, what's your daily system or routine for getting your follow-up and relationship management work done? I know most of you are going to tell me you don't have any, but I really want today to be the day that you draw a line in the sand and say, this is it. I'm going to start getting some routines and systems in place, because here's what they're going to do for you. First and foremost, they're going to give you structure, and we all need some kind of structure to our day, because if you walk into any given working day and there's no structure, it is an absolute free-for-all. And I use kids as an example. Kids do better under structure, and they become better people because of that structure. And we're no different. We'll perform better under structure, and our sales will be so much stronger because of that structure. Secondly, they're going to bring you organization. If we're all wired differently. If you're not naturally an organized person, even more the reason to use systems and routines, because they're going to support you in being more organized. Thirdly, they're going to make you more efficient. And I said earlier that, I think because the world is so crazy that we live in, and it's such a frenzy, and the first flying all the time, every minute of the day, that it's become the norm. And you don't want that. You want to operate in a smooth, efficient manner. You don't want the fur flying all the time around you, because the more efficient you are, the more productive you're going to be. And the more productive you are, the more sales you're going to close, which means the more money you're going to make. And that's always a good thing. And lastly, which is so important, is they're going to keep you consistent. And consistency is crucial. It's a necessity. We can't have change in any area of life if we're not consistent. So I use health as an example, and fitness, because we can all relate to it. If I want to lose 20 pounds, I've made that commitment. I'm going to lose 20 pounds. But you know what? I'll work out when I have the time and when I'm in the mood. And I'll eat healthy when it's convenient. Am I going to lose that 20 pounds? No, not even close, because I'm going to be so inconsistent, and I'm going to be reliant on my mood and how I feel and if the time's there. And business is no different. You can't follow up when you're in the mood, when you have the time, when it's convenient. It can't work like that because you're not going to get to where you want to be. And I know every one of you has vision and goals for where you want to go. Sales is what drives it there for you. So consistency is absolutely crucial. So if you're, I'm going to ask you a question about systems and routines. If you're not operating under any kind of system or routine, is it costing you financially in lost business? And only you know that answer. And if it is, I ask again today, that is today be the day you draw a line in the sand. Now, this is a good time of year because, there's just a difference in, new year, new you possibly. And people just tend to be a little more open in January to start making changes. And, we're headed towards the end of January, if you can even believe that. But, it's never too late to start. And that's what I want to encourage you to do. So if you're not operating under systems, routines, your follow-up skills, habits, fundamental strategies aren't where you want them to be, I told you I would be offering a free gift. And here's what it is. It's a complimentary ticket to my 2-hour virtual workshop. And here's what I'm going to show you how to do. I'm going to show you how to easily use a CRM for follow-up purposes. I don't care what CRM it is. I'm going to show you how to easily use it. I'm going to show you how to clear that business card stack off your desk if you have it, and how to prevent it from ever building again. Got to get rid of that situation. I really dive deeper into follow-up time management, because time is such an issue for so many people, and you've got to clear the way. You're not going to get more time. 24 hours is it. That's all you're going to ever get. And so I really have to work on that with you. And then lastly, I'm going to teach you a system. It's a daily follow-up action plan that will really support you in being consistent in getting this all important work done. These are the upcoming dates. There's 3 upcoming dates. It's from 9 to 11 Pacific time. You can go to my website, followupsalesstrategies.com, and go to the free workshop page to register. And I'm going to stop the share here in a minute. Well, actually, I can do it with it. I'm going to put I will also put a clickable link to my website that you can register in the chat box. I just put it in there. So I thank you for your time, and I will turn it back over to you, Naomi.
All right. Thanks so much. Does anyone have any questions before we sign off? You can use the chat. Let's see. Okay, so make sure you grab that link out of the chat that Wanda put in for you. But also feel free to unmute yourself at this time if you have questions.
What's a good CRM to use? Okay, so I get that question a lot. I wish I could say this is the CRM for everybody, but I can't say that because we're all different. So I will give you a few names though. People always want to know what I use, and it's a funny name. It's called Less Annoying. And to be very transparent, I'm an affiliate with them. And I'll put my affiliate link in the chat box. If you use them, you'll get 60-day free trial. Having said that, I don't care if you use Less Annoying or not. All I care about is that you get a CRM and use it. So Less Annoying is one. Another one is HubSpot, H-U-B, and then Spot. Pipedrive, P-I-P-E, Drive. Zoho, Z-O-H-O. And I'll give you one more, Insightly, I-N and then Sightly. Now, there's a very good chance you are going to like one of those CRMs, okay? If you don't look at too many at a time, because they're all going to start looking the same and it's going to get confusing and you might get frustrated. Just do process by elimination. But don't take forever and a day to make your decision. Because you have to overall like it, but it's just too important of an asset that you need right away. So don't take forever to make a decision. Oh. Naomi, did you see that? You're welcome, Barbara. You're recording it, right? So Veronica can get the recording. Whoops.
Yeah, it's recording.
Okay, so Brandy said, yeah, it's true. She got a CRM and it's made a huge difference. Yeah, it does. Good for you. You know, another thing I'll say is the 50% of it is getting it. The other 50% is you have to use it. There's so many people that have CRMs but don't use them. You know, it's like that gym membership. You've got to use it. So that's great, Brandy.
All right, do we have, oh, let's see.
You'll cover in the last item is a system that I'm going to teach you. It's a daily follow-up action plan system. On the screen. You're welcome. Yes. Okay. So would you say a CRM is just as useful for service-based business as well? Absolutely. If you have clients, prospects, and referral sources, it doesn't matter what's being sold, what kind of business it is. You absolutely have to use a CRM. Yes. Will the CRM work when running multiple businesses? Yes, it will, because it's about contacts. And I do that. I have another side thing that I do, and I use the same CRM for both. So yes, you can use it for multiple businesses. If you end up getting multiple CRMs, it's going to open the door for inefficiencies. And there's just no reason to have more than one system. I mean, it's very few exceptions why you would, but no.
We missed one question up above. Is MailChimp a CRM or is it built in Squarespace?
Thank you for asking that question, because there's a big misconception out there. People think MailChimp, Constant Contact, or CRMs. They are not. They are email marketing programs. That's what they are. So no, it's not a CRM. Oh, I don't know. I don't think that question's for me. You're welcome.
All right. Well, thanks again, everyone. Like I said, it's recorded. We'll have it sent out in an email when it is live on the website. If you don't get the email, you can always just refer back to our website under the Let's Talk Business Library. We have all of the recorded sessions. So thanks again. Thank you, Wanda, and Happy New Year to everyone. We'll see you next month.
Thank you. Bye-bye.